In honor of Halloween, I'm going to introduce you to my friend, the cake vampire. Chapter 1. We all know stories about vampires. They are dark and mysterious beings with a taste for blood, or so we've been led to believe. This story is about a different kind of vampire, a cake vampire. Wigi, like all vampires, slept during the day, avoided the sun, cast no shadow nor reflection in a mirror, and could, when pressured, turn himself into a bat. He had fangs, disliked garlic, and wooden stakes. The one thing that made him different from other vampires was his preferred diet of cake, white chocolate with raspberry filling being his favorite, with a rich dark chocolate devil's food taking a close second. His fangs tingled just being close to sweets. There was nothing more satisfying for Wigi than sliding his fangs into a moist piece of cake slathered thick with frosting. The cake vampire was pale, as all vampires are, but he was more the color of bread flour than fine-bone china. His legs were thin, his belly was round. Both his nose and feet were considered pointy. His dark cherub-like curls seemed in conflict with his brilliant white and slightly larger than normal fangs. He often considered wearing a hat, but his small round face always seemed to get lost under the brim. Had he been able to see himself in a mirror, even he would have said that his cinnamon eyes looked sad. Wigi had not had it easy. Other vampires made fun of him, calling him Fat Fang, and never inviting him to any of the cool vampire events, like the Fastest Fang Festival or Old Moon Bloodbath. He even had heard some of the other vampires whispering behind his back. A vampire who eats cake is no proper vampire at all.
In the shadow of the moonlit night, Wigi prowls for a sugary bite. Not crimson, no, he won't partake. His fangs crave only sweet sponge cake. Gateau whispers, eclair dreams. He's not the vampire he might seem.
Wigi the cake vampire
Takes the cake,
No blood
just frosting for heaven's sake. Chocolate, lemon, angel food delight. Wigi's sweet tooth rules the night. Other vamps hiss, they roll their eyes. Where's the thrill in a tart surprise? But Wigi grins with a powdered face, the king of cakes in his desert chase. Macarons and layers tall, his sugary love outshines them all.
Wigi the cake vampire
Takes the cake,
No blood
just frosting for heaven's sake. Chocolate, lemon, angel food delight. Wigi's sweet tooth rules the night.
Wigi the cake vampire
Takes the cake,
No blood
just frosting for heaven's sake. Chocolate, lemon, angel food delight. Wigi's sweet tooth rules the night.
Wigi lived in Castle Cakes, far away from the other vampires. In the shadow of his gray stone musty castle was a village which smelled of fresh bread and brown sugar every day, and more importantly for Wigi, every night. For as long as the townspeople could remember, they had baked Wigi cakes, to you and me, cupcakes. An extra cup full of batter was baked and left on the windowsill at night for luck. In the morning it was always gone, taken by their very own cake vampire. most of the townspeople did feel lucky. They were known throughout the region as excellent bakers. They had never known true famine or flood, no rats infested the town, nor were thieves underway at night. No one wished to meet the cake vampire when the sun went down. Sure, he only ate cake, but no one wanted to take the chance that his tastes could have changed. To be honest, he ate more than just cake. On the odd night when the villagers left out other sweet things, he discovered that he enjoyed sinking his fangs into a nice crème brûlée, strawberry rhubarb pie, apple galette, brownies, eclairs, and truffles. He was less fond of crunchy cookies and ice cream because it gave him fang freeze. Wigi would have been terribly lonely if it had not been for his one and only friend Marzipan, a stuffed pig. She was the color of cotton candy, had black button eyes and a little corkscrew tail, and a limp yellow bow with a thin tin bell around her neck. This little piggy had been his companion for years, and was looking a little rough around the edges. Marzipan's bell may no longer have been shiny, but she was a good listener and always had a smile for Wigi. "Do you want to join me tonight, Marzipan?" he would ask before he went to see what cakes the townspeople had left for him. She usually did, except if it was raining. Tucked under his left arm, Wigi would carry her to town. "Should we stop by the farmer's first?" he asked. "I think I smell some fresh apple cake waiting for us." In the dark, he held Marzipan up close to his face to look deep into her button eyes. "You're right. Let's save that for our way home. We will need a little bit of extra energy to get back up to the castle." Wigi always seemed to agree to Marzipan's solid reasoning. "Then we are off to Mr. Surratt's at the north end of town." He tucked her under his left arm and marched off toward his next cake meal. "I know you love his dark chocolate cake," Wigi said, "although," he added sternly, "I just got the chocolate smears off you from last time, you little piglet," he admonished her. He headed to town with Marzipan's bell tinkling softly as they walked. Wigi loved to have Marzipan keep him company on his nightly visits to town, especially since she left most of the cake for him. As luck would have it, there had been a lovely lemon sponge on 4th Street, and over in Goji Street, blueberry sour cream cake had been waiting. The two friends stopped by the farmer's for dessert of an apple cinnamon crumb before they headed back to Cake's castle. Wigi held Marzipan up to the moonlight, turning her over and making her tin bell ring. "Look at that," he said sternly. "How did you get chocolate on your tummy? Your snout doesn't even reach there." He sighed and then started back up the stony path to the castle. The crumbs from Wigi's cape created a trail that even Hansel and Gretel could not have missed. All would have continued this way for centuries to come if it had not been for the unfortunate wedding of the mayor to the baker. Chapter 2. Mr. Sidku was a popular mayor, married to the people. Many had joked about his single life. Miss Kea, on the other hand, was thought to be married to her oven. Impeccable by inclination and baker by trade, more interested in the perfect brioche than the perfect man. Who would have guessed that the two would eventually be the yeast in each other's bread, the butter in each other's croissant, the frosting on the other's cake? It was to be the event of the century. Preparations had been going on for months. So close to the big day, the wedding was all the villagers could think about. Everyone had important things to worry about. Flowers, guest lists, and seating arrangements replaced Wigi cakes. Eventually, weeks went by with no Wigi cakes on the windowsills. At first, he wasn't worried. There had been some dry patches before. The chicken pest of 1462 and the drought of 1803 were still fresh in his memory. Luckily, Wigi had a little extra batter around the middle to get him through the dry spells, and Marzipan insisted that she could lose a pound or two. At night, snug in his coffin, he dreamt of running across a field, his cape flowing behind him in a caramel-scented breeze. Cupcake flowers on sugar-spun stems were in full bloom. He picked a bouquet, took a mighty sniff, and then sank his fangs deep into the sweet sponge. If only that would happen in real life. Disappointment is what met him when he woke at sundown. One night, confident that he smelled fresh white chiffon cake with lemon curd, he put marzipan under his arm and headed to the village. "I am so hungry for some cake," he complained. Do you think that the villagers have forgotten me?" he asked with a little sniffle. "You're right, marzipan. Not everyone finds cake as important as I do." Wigi pulled back his shoulders and flung his cape behind him. Marzipan always knew the right things to say. He followed his nose to the center of town. He stopped. Through a window he spied a vision of white buttercream with marzipan flowers like a sugared garden of Eden. "Look, marzipan, that must be for the wedding." Of course, marzipan liked the flowers best. He looked to the windowsill, fangs dripping in anticipation. But there was nothing. "Maybe they put it around back," he said hopefully. Still, there was nothing to be found. He gazed longingly at the sweet four-layered extravaganza. He moved slowly through the village, checking every windowsill. Still nothing. Tired, suffering from low blood sugar, and with the best intentions, he whispered, "I guess we should head back to the castle," he said, putting on a brave face for marzipan. They walked hungrily through the dark village streets, ending up passing right by the window where the towering, luscious masterpiece stood in a halo of spun sugar sparkling in the moonlight. "Maybe just one more look before we go home," Wigi suggested. Marzipan wanted to go home now. She did not have a good feeling about this. Cake vampires are not known for their iron willpower. It was more like weak whipped cream, but Wigi wanted a closer look. Somehow, he was standing right next to the sweet tower, breathing it in, the smell blanketing him like fondant. Wigi tried to look away. Marzipan pleaded with him to leave this place. "We'll go home in just a moment. Don't be such a pest," he said sharply, annoyed with his friend. Marzipan went quiet. Wigi had never been so short with her before. Perhaps if Wigi had not been so cake-deprived, he could have been stronger. The cloying fragrance of the flowers hypnotized him. Just a little bite, maybe a single candied flower, wouldn't be noticed. Was the cake as fluffy and as light as he imagined? The tart lemon curd, the perfect bounds to the cake's sweetness? No one would notice just a little bite. Wigi could ease in one fang, hardly leaving a mark in the perfect frosting.
Fluffy layers, a lemon dream of curd and cream, the sweetest team. Marzipan blooms in sugar disguise, but don't touch the cake, it's not for you. One little bite, just one, he says, but the crumbs tell tales at the break of day. Cake vampire strikes at night. Just one bite, just one bite. Crumbs at dawn, no cake in sight. Forks untouched, a shadow creeps through frosting hills where silence sleeps. A whisper soft, just one bite. But don't touch the cake, it's not for you. Golden sponge, a midnight theft, only icing clouds are left. Cake vampire strikes at night.
she's not talking. But in the morning, instead of a wedding cake, there were crumbs and a single marzipan flower. A poor omen for the start of the wedding day festivities. "I can't marry without a wedding cake," the bride insisted. The panicked groom uttered unthinkingly, "But it's just cake." The bride's family was the most famous baking family in town. Miss Kaya's grandmother and great-grandmother had been bakers. Her grandfather, her aunt, her uncle, sisters, her parents, and a niece too. There was one cousin who was a lawyer, but no one liked to talk about him. The father of the bride fainted. The mother of the bride turned slightly yellow and sweaty, much like the color of underwhipped meringue. The blushing bride's eyes grew small, her lips pressed together in a very thin line. "And I am just a baker and will not marry without a cake," Miss Kaya said, and stomped off. "Wait!" her groom called and ran after her. No cake, no bride, no wedding. Disappointment ran rampant through the village. Some took the side of the bride. "Of course you cannot marry without a cake." Some, the groom. "That was no reason to call off the wedding." And a very few took pity on the cake vampire. Had they made a Wigi cake, none of this would have happened. But most blamed Wigi. Why couldn't he keep his fangs to himself? Back at the castle, things weren't much better. Wigi, full of cake, frosting, lemon curd, and marzipan, groaned softly. "Oh, don't look at me that way," he cried at Marzipan, with her black button eyes cutting through him like a cake knife. I know, I shouldn't have done it," he cried. Marzipan turned around and showed him her tail. "Don't yell at me," he moaned. "I feel terrible enough already. I should have listened to you." Marzipan could never stay angry with Wigi. She let him hold her tight while he waited for his tummy ache to pass. Chapter 3. "None of my family will bake Wigi cakes ever again," announced Miss Kaya, baker and disappointed bride, to all who would listen. "Me neither, me neither, me neither," claimed her bridesmaids. Soon many people followed suit. "But we have always baked for the cake vampire," one of the town elders pointed out. What if he discovers a taste for other things? Everyone turned to the mayor for guidance. The mayor, still trying to win back his bride, sent out a decree. "From this day forward, no townspeople shall aid the cake vampire in his abnormal consumption of cake. Henceforth, no Wigi cakes are to be produced. Violators will be prosecuted and fined." On paper, this seemed like a good idea. The townspeople continued on with their lives, baked cakes, and made none for our cake vampire. In the beginning, Wigi hardly even noticed the change at all. He was still quite stuffed from the wedding cake and too embarrassed to head to town. On his first trip back after the wedding cake catastrophe, Marzipan did mention how odd it was that there were no Wigi cakes on the sills, even though the town did smell of vanilla, sugar, and eggs. "It's just an off night," Wigi said, putting on a brave face, but knowing deep down that something wasn't quite right. Had he gone too far by ruining the wedding cake? Doubt, like tapioca pudding, clogged every step he took back to the castle. Then one night, certain he smelled cake, good old devil's food, one of Wigi's favorites. He took Marzipan to town. Following Marzipan's nose, they found the house where the cake was. Nothing was on the windowsill. Yet through the window, Wigi could see cake. "But I need cake," he insisted, as Marzipan tried to talk him out of entering the house. "No, I can't just knock on the door," he hissed. Marzipan went quiet. She knew that there was no arguing with him when he had not had his cake. And so for the second time, he broke in and stole cake. Unfortunately, this became a pattern. At first, people tried to hide their cakes under the bed, in the freezer, in a hat box, but Wigi always found them. Perhaps if he had not been such a messy eater, the majority of the townspeople could have overlooked it. Those who left cake uneaten after sundown woke to a cake gone and a mess to clean up. "What happens if he breaks in and finds no cake?" Widow Meyer whispered, with a noticeable tremor, to her teacup. Wigi turned to a life of cake crime, breaking and entering and eating and leaving a mess behind. This did not improve his popularity with the town. The next decree went out. No cake may be baked after 4 p.m. and must be consumed by sundown. Violators will be prosecuted and fined. For the private citizen, this was not such a problem. But for those who made their bread with baking cakes, on the other hand, this did not solve the problem. It was very difficult to bake, frost, and sell a cake, and then make sure it was eaten all in one day. Miss Kaya was not happy, and if she was not happy, the mayor was miserable. Finally, the mayor called an emergency meeting at the town hall, and all the citizens were invited to come. "Fellow citizens," he called out, "we must do something to rid ourselves of this nuisance." A cheer rose up from the crowd. "Run 'em out of town!" called out one. "Garlic on every door!" cried another. Soon the people were in a frenzied state. "Quiet, quiet!" he called out. Finally, as the noise faded, Miss Kaya walked to the front of the hall. "Maybe we should just stop making cake," she said, her voice hard as crystal sugar. At first, there were conflicting shouts echoing through the room. The mayor sat in the front of the room in his great chair, trying to catch Miss Kaya's eye. And once he did, he knew what he had to do. "And so shall it be!" He stood up, voice thundering through the room. "As of sundown tomorrow, no cake will be found in our fair city. Go to your ovens now, citizens. Make your last cake." The village smelled of chocolate, vanilla, of lemon and hazelnut, sugar and brown butter, sandwiched in between. When Wigi woke, he was excited to get to town, the tantalizing smells making his fangs tingle. "Oh, it smells like a lot of cake tonight, Marzipan." He sighed while his tummy grumbled. "You're right. They must have forgiven me by now." He held Marzipan close to his ear, and she whispered, "Maybe it would have helped if I had apologized, Marzipan. I just didn't know how," Wigi confessed. "I have learned my lesson," he insisted, even though the honey-like smell of cake seemed to be fading with every step he took towards town. No Wigi cakes were found on any windowsills. Cake he smelled, but none he found. I don't understand," he moaned to Marzipan. They looked in windows and found doors locked. Even Marzipan's sensitive nose was coming up empty.
In the corner of the bakery, he hides in shame. The frosting on his fingers, he's the one to blame. The donuts tremble, the pies take flight. No more sugar fangs in the dead of night. Hey! Signs in the square, no cupcakes, no care. The townsfolk chanting, he's had his share. No more cake, hey, hey, just don't bake, just don't bake. Let the ovens cool, for goodness sake. He may cry, he may beg, but keep the flour off the peg. No more cake, just don't bake. Protesters march with their frosting-free dreams, banishing tarts and declares to the streams. The vampire weeps, his cravings on fire. His sugary ray meets the town's desire. Goodbye to cookies, farewell to cream. His reign is over like
was no cake. His fangs ached for some proper sponge with cream. He sat on a bench at the fountain in the town square, awake and hungry, aching for cake. Cake, he moaned quietly, perhaps a bit delirious. You will find no cake tonight, vampire, said a voice behind him. Wigi spun around to see a small, thin woman with gray, wispy hair, in a tight little bun worn high on her head. Her wrinkled face and jewel blue eyes were not unfriendly. He was so stunned that he said nothing. There will be no cake tomorrow, or the next night, or even next month, she warned. Wigi's mouth hung open. He tried to form words, but they stuck in his throat like stale fruitcake. You went too far this time, vampire, she whispered. That was the wedding cake of the mayor. Wigi swallowed, the sugar lump rising in his throat. I am sorry. I was just so hungry, and Marzipan tried to stop me, but I just didn't listen, he said, hanging his head in shame, hugging Marzipan close. The town wants you gone and has stopped baking cake to force you to go, vampire. Where should I go? What am I to eat? If he had had a heart, it would have been in his shoes by now. What can I do to stop this? I am afraid it is too late now, vampire, she said softly. What if I have to eat? Well, you know what vampires eat. He couldn't bring himself even to say it, his stomach rolling at the thought. Then there will never be cake or peace here, she answered. Reaching into her back pocket, she pulled out a small Wigi cake, white chocolate with raspberry filling. Thank you, he said, taking the small, perfect cupcake in his hands, as if it were made of the most fragile spun sugar. The woman turned and left, leaving the cake vampire to devour his last Wigi cake. Poor Wigi, what is he to do? What will he eat? Will he turn to a true vampire diet? Tune in to our next cast to find out.